So yeah, I also saw the first reactions for Rise of Skywalker, and they weren't great. I'm like, oh no, not again. Because even though I was starting to get excited about watching a new Star Wars movie and also watching the conclusion of the Skywalker saga, I knew that the internet was probably going to spit its dummy out and go ballistic, and we were going to have a repeat of the Last Jedi fiasco, and people were just going to go, like it's a blight on humanity, and everybody's lives ruined, and it's horrible. And rather than go, I liked it, I didn't like it. For those who make movies for yourself, there's obviously a lot more that goes into a film than did you like it, did you not like it. But for a film viewer, that's the only two important things.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it or did you not enjoy it? Beyond that, it's not worth getting really wound up about any film at all. If you don't like it, don't talk about it. So the Last Jedi thing was a mess. It was embarrassing for film fans. And so I was concerned that The Rise of Skywalker was going to do the same. And a lot of the early reviews, they were like, JJ, you've ruined my childhood. Disney should run. Like, oh, here we go again. But then after I saw it, went back onto Twitter again, there's a lot of positive reviews. So it seems to be, I don't know whether it was the critics that hated it and the fans are quite liking it, or whether it's just a little bit divisive, or what's been your feedback from what you've seen of it, other than Hugh's one, of course.
Well, speaking generally, we are going to spoil the film, aren't we?
We'll try and keep spoils to a minimum, but if we're going to spoil it, we'll do it in a little bit, I think, because a lot of people haven't seen it because it's only out like 2 days.
You have to have that alert siren.
Yes, definitely. So. I love that. We'll have that later
on. Well, okay. So you were saying it's only a movie.
Yeah.
Firstly, you're dealing with a guy who finds it even hard to talk about emotionally. I'm actually in the throes of something. But okay, what's happening? What I can see is happening out there is, the reviewers don't like it, and I know what they're going, what they're seeing. But the fans are satisfied with it. Now, speaking as an industry professional, what JJ does is he's packing as much emotionalism and highs and lows into the movie as possible to make sure you come out of that theater for the first week and are all jacked and excited and pumped, and it's like, oh my God, that was such an emotional roller coaster. Wow. And there's so much crammed in. I need to see it again. Right. And he's done that on purpose because it's a business. And he might say he's a Star Wars fan, but he's not doing this as a fan. Rogue One was a good example of a Star Wars fan making a Star Wars fan movie. Yeah. This was not made in the perspective of a fan. It was made, okay, we've made a massive investment, and he owns the company. Yes, he does. He owns, one of the production companies. So his Bad Robot company has made a ton of money and is going to make money because they're on a percentage of the movie profits. So he has to make sure the movie hits hard in the first week, and that's what this is. It's a movie that's going to delight audiences for the first week for Christmas and make them feel good and make them feel wonderful. And then they're going to sit back and peel under the surface and go, oh dear. And the critics have been, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
The critics are the ones who see through this.
Right.
So I think that's what's going on. And it doesn't mean this is a bad movie. It just means the critics are immediately saying, we know there's nothing, he's pulled too many tricks and gags. It's a roller coaster ride. You go to Disneyland, you get on the roller coaster, there's moments where it jumps down, oh, there's relief, and then, oh, there's fear, there's relief, there's fear, there's relief. And and Rise of Skywalker is a roller coaster ride. And I mean, exactly that, it's that's what it's meant to be. So, I walked out of the theater and I was watching it. I enjoyed every second of it. Emotionally, as a human being, was I moved to tears a couple of times? Just about, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, as a human being, I actually enjoyed the ride, and I thought, man, if I'm going to die tomorrow, I will die feeling a little bit happy that I saw something and I allowed myself to go there and be emotional. But as a movie maker myself, who's made actually more films than JJ's made,
You have indeed, yeah.
And have made more mistakes than he's made. I have different opinions on it. So, how do you categorize that? How did you walk out, Stuart, feeling when you?
Well, I walked in thinking, and I didn't tell Annette any of the feedback because it could potentially have tainted her viewing.
Yeah.
So I dragged her along to watch it. And I went up to the concessions desk and bought a nice little slushy drink in a special Star Wars cup with a nice little R2D2 lid on it. And I've kept that and I brought it home. And I thought, right, here we go. This is either going to be really good, in which case all the critics that I've read are wrong, or it's going to be bad and they're all right, and I'll probably try and salvage something quite good out of it. And I came out of it thinking, do you know what, that was a lot better than I thought it was going to be,
Yes.
because the critics had been kicking the crap out of it like 24 hours before. I
Yeah.
think if I hadn't seen any reviews, I certainly didn't come out of it in the same way that I came out of The Force Awakens, which, while sitting there watching The Force Awakens for the first time, I had a big cheesy grin on my face going, wow, finally Star Wars seems to be back for me. Yeah, and I don't mind the prequels. I don't love the prequels, but I don't mind them. They're okay. Attack of the Clones I'm not a massive fan of, but other than that, I quite like them. But The Force Awakens was, for me, joyful. From the moment you see the Millennium Falcon, you're like, oh, wow, and all this sort of stuff. And I think with Rise of Skywalker, I think because of things that happened off screen, so the passing of Carrie Fisher, and it kind of written himself, well, he'd not written himself into a corner, but he had a lot of things stacked against him.
Yeah.
So apparently Force Awakens was Han Solo's story, the Last Jedi was Luke Skywalker's story, and the third one was going to be Leia Organa's story, but obviously that couldn't happen. So they're like, right, how do we do this? Also, how do we answer all these questions, not only from the previous two films, but also the other six? So it wouldn't have been an easy writing task, I would have thought. However, you get paid a lot of money and you've got a lot of talented writers. You've got one job, sit down and write a good story. Shut up, come out when it's ready type thing. Yes,
Yeah.
I mean you, James Cameron. Just how hard can it be to write some Avatar movies? Come on, get done. So I think there was some things that were stacked against him. But all in all, I came out. Annette loved it.
Good.
She really, really enjoyed it, and she's usually my benchmark.
Yeah.
Because if she don't like it, she'll tell me. She'll be like, "That's dreadful." As I remember from Fast and the Furious 7 or 8, I think it was, I took her to watch. Not a fan, didn't like it, crap. But
Interesting.
We came out of Skywalker and we both liked it. There was a guy behind me, anyway, I can't believe we're waiting months for that. So it's very divisive.
Oh dear.
Very, very, very divisive.
I'm not very happy about that movie.
But I enjoyed, there was a couple of bits in it where I'm like, really? Okay, fair enough. I'm not quite sure I would have done
what
that.
bits? What bits?
I mean, we could start maybe getting into spoilers. So anybody who's not seen it, go away and come back.
Go away.
Come back later on. Ask me what Neil's New Year's resolutions are later on, and I'll tell you in a tweet. But so yes, we'll get into spoilers, so we may start ruining plot points. Right. So the first bit that made me go, really, eye roll, was the General Hux.
Really?
I'm the spy. It's like, oh. But only for a split second. And I was talking to Annette about that today, and I said, well, it did make me go, what? But then wouldn't the spy be the last person you thought it would possibly be? And he was probably one of the last people I thought it would be. So, I'll let that one slide.
It gave me a laugh.
It made me think, okay, I maybe wouldn't have written that in if I wrote it, but do you know what? I didn't write it, so whatever, it's fine. And then I just moved on very, very quickly and had a bit of a chuckle.
What did you think of Richard E. Grant, who was actually playing the Hux?
He was amazing.
Wasn't he good?
He was born to play that.
Oh.
He really was, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like they could do prequels. I think they do some spin-offs or whatever, some sidequels. Bring him back, put him in that role, because he was great. He looked imperial.
Oh.
He really did. He was great.
Yes.
Babu Frick, great character.
Don't say that the wrong way, though.
No, no, don't. No, no, I had to think about the way I said that. There wasn't enough porgs. I thought we could maybe have done with a few more porgs in this movie, but we saw them. But
Yeah.
one of the things that made me laugh today, and it's only because people they look into it way too much. And you and I, Star Wars has been there. We've been there from the beginning of Star Wars. We remember just before Star Wars, and then Star Wars came out, and we've always had Star Wars in our life. But they were mad at the fact that Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker is promoting domestic abuse,
Oh,
which I
how?
didn't. So I went down to Annette and I said, "Did you like Skywalker?" She went, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, you're just as bad as them." She's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "How can you like a film like that?" She said, "What are you on about?" I said, "It promotes domestic abuse. What's the matter with you? How can you like that piece of filth?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I went, "Well, obviously you've not recognised, so I will have to educate you in how it does that." I said, the previous film, and probably Force Awakens, Kylo Ren was horrible towards Rey, wasn't he? She went, "Well, yeah, he was." I'm
Yeah.
like, would you say he was abusive? She went, "Oh, don't know, maybe." I'm like, "Ah." And then the kiss happens, and then she decides that she likes him. So she's kind of fallen for her abuser, which is promoted. She's like, "Oh, fuck off."
Oh,
But this is genuinely one of the articles that's going around now. It's like, oh, come on, this is a film
you're kidding.
about space wizards and little
Space
weird creatures
wizards.
and time jumping and all that sort of stuff. It's just like, come on. But yeah, no, it's a genuine article I read this afternoon. It's
Uh,
promoting domestic abuse and has no issue with it whatsoever. It's like, oh, come on.
I'm offended by clickbaiters, and that's what
Yeah,
that is.
yeah,
That's
me too.
clickbaiting.
I made sure that I did my review today and there was no mention of any plot. And I even put in the title, no spoilers whatsoever. And I think I just put like, checking out Rise of Skywalker or something. I've never been one of these. It's like, click on this to find out what happened next. I hate
Yeah.
that. I never click on those articles. Never. Because it's like, if you want to tell me in the heading and then I might read your story. But
Yeah, it's it's
uh,
it's it's a thing, and it goes back to the days of headlines and the newspaper days. Put these outrageous headlines up there, even back in the 40s and 30s, and
mm,
now it's just say something outrageous and then make you click on the link.
it's,
It's about money.
It's right. Maybe that's where I'm going wrong because I don't make any. Maybe I need to start doing deleted scene from Rise of Skywalker you've never seen because
You should try it one day. Put something
I might do.
outrageous up there. Yeah,
Find out
just
what is under Justin Bieber's pants. That sort of article.
well, there's
Yeah.
entire people on YouTube who make stuff up about the screening of Rise of Skywalker. People have been walking out of the advanced screenings, and there were no advanced screenings, and this is what they said, and this is what happened, and blah blah blah, and you know Kathleen Kennedy was abused by everybody because she did wrong. She had to go back and reshoot, and there's 7 versions of the movie.
Uh,
These people have lied to
They
get
have.
clicks.
Yep.
So that's
Somebody did walk out of my screening. I suspect they were just going to the bathroom, but
yeah,
they might not have been.
yeah.
Because it was just after the kiss. It's literally the kiss came on screen, and then this guy just got up and walked out. Now, to be honest, I didn't pay attention whether it came back or not, but I suspect he was just going to the bathroom
He was probably
for
holding
a
it for a
drink.
long time. God bless him.
Probably was. He's like, I'm off.
Okay, I've got to go.
Uh, but no, I think other than that, I think the General Hux thing made me chuckle. The kiss thing was kind of cheesy, but I get it because it's like, thank you,
Yeah,
thanks
I
for sort of saving me. Have a quick peck. They didn't swap engagement rings or anything like that.
well, he died then,
He did.
and I thought that was valid. I thought, well, they've made everyone happy. The way I looked at the whole film is like, well, he had certain things. He had a list of things he had to fix, and from the Last Jedi. I'm not saying it was. He made the mistake of going in there doing the first film without a plan. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't give the plan to Ryan Johnson to follow, or Kathleen didn't, or whoever.
Yeah.
And then that's the mistake they've made all along. They say, well, it was always planned. It wasn't. It
No,
wasn't.
not at all. No.
They're 3 separate movies that just happen to be about similar characters. And if you actually looked at apart from Luke Skywalker dying, spoiler, um, in the second film. The second film is irrelevant. You could watch film 1 and film 3 together,
Yeah.
and have 10 seconds to show Luke dies.
Yep.
And then you basically have the whole story. So it's kind of, I won't say people drop the ball, but when you're making a movie trilogy and you got George Lucas, he's got a plan. Now you can watch episode 1, 2, and 3, and you can see a progression of the story.
Mm-hmm.
You watch 7, 8, and 9, there is no progression of story. There's a little bit, but there should have been a hint to the Phantom Menace returning. There should have been some hint. Something to tell us, oh, well, there's something going on in the outer regions. Well, what can it be? There should have been something in there just to hint. Oh, here's the Knights of Ren, but we're not really going to show them, and then we're going to forget about them for movie 2, and they've turned up in movie 3, and they're actually Sith.
Yep.
So why don't you just call them the Knights of Sith, the Sith Knights? That's the biggest criticism I have. But JJ did fix all the problems. In episode from episode 8. He kind of trashed Rose, the culinary friend.
A little bit. Yep.
I didn't mind her. I didn't hate her like everyone's carrying on about. I thought she was okay and valid, and her performance was good. Kind of relegated her to nothing. Kind of even the Luke Skywalker throwing away the lightsaber shock.
I got rid of that really quickly. You should treat that with respect.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a minute. You didn't in the last film. You threw it over your shoulder.
And that one line was the one fu to Ryan Johnson. I'm sorry, but that really was.
I've heard a few people picking up on that line, going, "Yeah, that was the one way where JJ's like, nope."
Yeah.
Or maybe not necessarily JJ, but Disney or whoever it was. But nope, we're going to try and claw back. And I enjoyed The Last Jedi.
I did too.
Yeah, it didn't feel... Somebody was asking me today, saying they weren't really a fan of The Last Jedi. Will Rise of Skywalker fix the issues? I said, well, Rise of Skywalker will make you appreciate Last Jedi a little bit better. And style-wise, See, Last Jedi is the one Star Wars film that sticks out style-wise, very different from any of the other ones.
Mm.
And Rise of Skywalker is kind of similar style, but also looks a bit more Star Warsy. So it's clawing it back.
Yeah, I did come out of Rise of Skywalker feeling I got my Star Wars fix.
Yeah.
Which I haven't felt that since Rogue One, to be honest. And there was a lot in it for me. I tell you something interesting. Going back on the social media thing for a second, Ryan Johnson. I somehow his Twitter came up because I feel for the guy. I truly do because we have the same last name. Both our first names have 4 letters, and so I kind of feel for him a bit. So that could have been me copying the abuse from people.
Yeah.
And now I saw something about his Knives Out film, and I read the comments, and everybody said, "We love you. We love you. We need you back. We are so sorry." I kid you not. It is unbelievable. Not you killed my childhood. You killed Luke, even though he did kill Luke. Shame on him. It was like, we are so sorry. We need you. Please come back to Star Wars.
It's crazy because 2 years ago they were like burning hell, Ryan, and now it's burning hell, JJ. And I mean, it makes me chuckle, but also makes me feel really sorry for George Lucas, where back in 99 or 98, 97, they were all like, we need more Star Wars. We've not had Star Wars. George, please make more Star Wars. Please
come
make
back,
more
George.
Star Wars. Fuck you, George. We don't want those Star Wars. Please make other Star Wars. It's like, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
Well, the majority of the hate videos for Rise of Skywalker, before it came out, of saying, this is how bad it is. That they brought George Lucas back to fix it, and this is the version, and they gave all plot details of what George Lucas's version was, right. And this is the one that tests best with you. It was all lies, but everyone's saying, bring him back, and it's so interesting that people are like the wind; they're just changing their opinions constantly, and I'm waiting for the revolution to start where everyone says to all the online negative Nancy's and the people who have an opinion that it becomes, rather than, it becomes very uncool to be one of those people. Just sit there and give your opinion. I think there's going to have to be a point in humanity where we say your opinion needs to be earned and vetted before you can give your opinion. Because we've all got opinions, and you and me, we both love Star Wars. You thought the Hux scene was a bit odd. I thought it was humorous.
Yeah.
But
well, I don't, not for a second was I like, right, I'm leaving now. It was just like,
no,
what? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and but this is humanity. We all will have a different. We all may love the same things, but it's there's a point where people have to be silent, and it's the same thing with people saying, oh, I read a book about some new age spiritual healing. If you eat this herb, it's going to heal your cancer. Okay, and that stuff goes around, and it has killed people. And those people are still sprouting their nonsense. Please buy my product; it cures cancer. Steve McQueen died from one of those mystery cancer cure products that weren't real. So there's going to have to be a point where people have to be silent if they have an opinion, and learn to become educated and vetted in okay, you have an opinion now. I once had the opinion that the whole of humanity was doomed unless they accepted Jesus Christ. Okay. And I was a very young boy.
Yeah.
I grew up, and now it's like, I think my opinion right now is Christianity is a blight on civilization, and all religion should be erased. Well, that was me maybe 4 years ago. And today it's like, well, some people need religion. Yeah. So it's okay. My opinion changes like the wind.
Yeah, so I think with religion and stuff, it's like, I'm not a religious person, but do you know what? If you feel a lot better for going home and praying to something, so be it. It doesn't impact my. But then when you start knocking on my door, going, "This is how you need to live your life. You need to do what I'm doing, or you'll be damned." Then I think that's when it becomes a major issue.
Yeah, but see, Stuart, I was that guy. I was that guy.
Oops.
Yeah, and now it's like I find those people disgusting. And the moment they step on my doorstep, I will rattle their cage beyond, nobody's business, and tell them why they're wrong. Yeah. But again, it's my opinion, and their opinion is, well, this guy's a crazy man. The Jehovah's Witnesses listed my house once as a house you never visit.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I got told that.
They actually have a list. Wow.
The elders, one guy came to me after I rattled them and told them, this is why your religion's wrong. And I gave him full proof because I was an expert on, Came back to me and said, thank you for saying that. You actually have changed my life. Just so you know, they'll never visit you again because the elders have said this is a house we don't ever go to. We've wiped it. There's some technical term for it, but
is if you're a religious person, isn't that the house that you really do want to keep going back to? Or is that just me?
No, because I was dangerous. Because I took these young Jehovah's Witnesses aside and explained to them why their religion was completely wrong, using their own words.
Yeah.
Because I was
good point.
Yeah, and they listened.
Wow.
But this is people's opinions. These are people's opinions, and we all have opinions, and none of it's right. I'm suffering pain from watching Rise of Skywalker because, I don't know if I like the movie. I loved it, but I don't know if I know I wouldn't have done the same, but I don't know. I know exactly what I would have done. I don't know if my movie would have opened to as bigger numbers as it's going to make $200 million this weekend.
I think that's the trade-off, isn't it? It's like, as much as I'm enjoying doing my little films and I'm looking forward to cracking on with those editing, if somebody came to me and said, right, you will make money if you change this and change that and make them all talk with a different accent, I don't know whether I go, do you know what, I'm sticking to my guns, or I go, all right, I'll take money. I'm fine, because then I can go do more films.
I've been in that position, Stuart. I have been in that exact position with my films. And I would say probably the movies I love my most beloved movies are the movies where I stuck to my guns.
Yeah.
But they also made the least amount of money.
Isn't it? I know, isn't it? It's like, nobody could say, oh, it's like when people say about music bands, go, oh, I don't like them anymore. They're sold out. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd sell out. If somebody phoned me up tomorrow and said, I'll pay you £1,000 a week to do a football podcast, and I hate football, I'd be like, okay, I'm done. I'm in. I'm selling out. I'm good.
Oh, but Stuart,
Where do I start? I wouldn't enjoy it, but
it
I would
does
use it to.
destroy your soul, Stuart. I've been there. It really destroys your soul.
It does, but it will enable me to do little other things that will restore my soul.
Yeah,
That would be my logic.
I know, and you're right, but it does destroy your soul.
Because my night job destroys my soul, but it also gives me money to pay rent and to pay the internet bill and go to film events and hang out with the Soska sisters
and that's true.
Things like that. So
yeah,
I'm clawing onto my soul where possible.
Well, I envy you for that. I envy anyone who has a job because I don't have a job apart from what I do. And it'd be so nice to get a paycheck. It would be so lovely. So I envy you for this.
Well, I've got 2 projects kind of lined up for next year. I'm going back to Grimfest again, which was the Manchester one, because they've extended it from 3 days to 5 days. So I've managed to get all the time off for that next year, which is next October, I believe. So I'm happy about that. Mick Garris is going to be there, who I've been a fan of Mick Garris's work for years. I've seen Stephen King's The Stand.
The Stand.
So many times. Many times. So I will actually next year be sitting down chatting to Mick Garris. So I'm very excited about that. I don't know which other guests are going yet, but they will be announced at some point. And I've also managed to get the time off for London Fright Fest. And I've also been told that I will be able to get press access for that. So God knows who I'm going to be speaking to at that one. But that's also another 5-day thing around August, I believe. So I have actually, other than this year, this year's been a write-off for me event-wise. I mean, Grimfest was amazing, but that was pretty much the only event I went to this year. And next year I've at least got 2 lined up, so I'm getting quite excited.
Yes, see, that's fun. I wish I could have that freedom, shall we say? I'm bound by the almighty dollar, and I'm now a prisoner for 2 years, been locked in a room, editing my greatest movie. But I'm still a prisoner to that now. I'm a slave to it. So, it's just one of those things. But back to the Rise of Skywalker, my frustration with what they did and didn't do and what I would have done differently is what I think. What it did? It's like, and I'm, talking about the stuff at the end, the Emperor, and my God, the thing I would have done at the end is a whole different thing. But I felt myself, okay, I've got an opinion on what they should have done at the end. And it made me want to go and shoot an. Well, no. No, it made me want to go and shoot an extra scene for the Time War, and this is how I would have approached it. That end scene, and I felt that was a good reaction because I was like, well, I'm angry. Not angry. I wasn't angry, but I was annoyed how they handled the ending, and I would have done it differently. I don't have a right to really have an opinion. Because, I don't, because it's his movie. But rather than me bitch and scream about it, why don't I just go and do better myself? Why don't I just go and make something and say, this is how I would have done the ending in spirit? And so it's inspired me to write an extra scene for the Time War. That's kind of how I deal with that. What did you think of the ending?
I didn't mind the ending. The problem is, I was chatting to somebody about this before I watched Rise of Skywalker, and it was a case of, wait for the internet trolls to come out. And it just seems a lot of people, and we're guilty of that as well, we want the same magic that we got back in 77, 80. And, when Jedi came out in 83, we want that, wow, that's amazing. I mean, if you technically take the films, so you take the original trilogy and then you take the new trilogy, the look of these new films is way better than the original ones.
Oh, is it ever?
Way better. But the storyline's maybe not as good. But maybe it is. I don't know. I just think we we've come so far with cinema. If you'd have released Last Jedi in '77, that would have been one of the best films ever made. People would have loved it till the end of time, and then 42 years later, they'd still be talking about how that's better than every other one.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it, nostalgia, I think, damages a lot. So I had no idea how they could possibly close out an 11. Because I'm counting the two Ewok movies, so it's like 13 films altogether, isn't it? If you count the two Ewok movies and Solo and Rogue One and stuff, how do you close? This is the same problem that Game of Thrones had. I mean, that had only been running 8 years, but it's like, how the heck do you end that story? Which isn't even as big as how do you close the Skywalker saga? So I didn't come out of it thinking, do you know how I would have? I genuinely do not know how I would have ended it any different than how they did.
Well, here's what I would have done. I would have added 30 minutes to the movie. because why? Why not?
Yeah.
And then I would have made that whole third act, ridiculously long. And here's what would have happened. And maybe they're going to do this, and I have reasons for saying this, but so Rey meets the Emperor, and I think we lost some of his wonderful moments, his beautiful lineage. If you look how he speaks in Revenge of the Sith and how he speaks in this, and he's so wonderful in Revenge of the Sith. Here he's just lipping around with some lipstick, and he was just saying the words and repeating his lines from Return of the Jedi a lot. So what I would have done, okay, so he says, okay, we've got all the Sith here. So you see all these guys with cowls on everywhere. Okay, so it's an interesting concept. And I would have expanded on the Sith lore a little bit more. So rather than just sitting in a giant grandstand watching what's going on, like it's a show, basically, it was like an arena. I would have had the individual Sith Lords visible, which would have meant so much more work. So then you're going to see Darth Revan and Darth, Bannerman and Darth everybody standing there.
Darth Johnson and Darth Bannerman, all like that.
Yeah, but suddenly you see all these one or two ghostly Sith people standing there, and you just go, "Wow, look at that! How interesting is that?" There's all of this the ghost that this is the ghost army of the dead, and so basically Rey was facing not just Palpatine but also the entire Sith, empire. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow, there's so many of them. This opens my mind up to so much more. This is so much bigger than I expected. Let's go epic. So there they all are. It's worth the effort to do this, by the way. So how does Rey fight that? Well, she would then, okay, we hear their voices in her head, I'm going to call on the other Jedi, Suddenly, and this is going back to George Lucas's original idea for Return of the Jedi. Obi-Wan Kenobi was supposed to come back in the flesh and help Luke fight, which, he doesn't need the help. He can do this by himself. Whatever. But she obviously needed the help because she was untrained, and she was, she's magical. She's just born magical. So bring back, I would have had her go to the dark side and shown her completely, dark side Rey, and have her go completely ballistic dark. And then she starts fighting with herself. And then Ben Solo comes in and tries to drag her back to the light. And together they're not strong enough. So suddenly all the Force ghosts come back. So you see Luke Skywalker come back leading Yoda, leading Mace Windu, leading, Obi-Wan Kenobi, all of them. Yep. An army of all the ones that we just missed and loved from the prequels, and they all come back, including Ahsoka Tano from the comics, from the cartoon series, and they all come back, and they're with lightsabers, but they become physical, much more physical than they've ever been before, much more solid. And then Luke leads the army of the Jedi to fight the army of the Sith. And then it's like this complete physical battle, like you've never seen on cinema before, except maybe on Lord of the Rings or Return of the King. But one of those sort of battles where they just hack and slash and fight each other to the death. So they're all, destroyed, and the Sith are defeated that way. That's how you defeat a Sith army, with an army of Jedi, and not with just one person, who suddenly has magic. Because, that would be, wow, together, we as a humanity can fight any evil. That's the message. And I think JJ he was so under the gun to fix everything that he didn't think about, okay, what's the message? What do I want to say to people? And I don't think he had anything to say. I really don't. I think he just went in there saying, I got to finish this, got to make money for my company, got to finish the movie. But what does his heart tell him? And the movie is structured just like it's edited just like J.J. Abrams is. I met him once years ago, before he did Star Trek. Or encountered him, should I say, for about 10 seconds. But the way he speaks, he just goes, I'm talking really fast. And blah, 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 blah. He's like super, super fast talker, but very terse and direct, and doesn't want to say too much, just want to say little snippets and move on. Little snippets, move on. That's how the movie was. It was a reflection of his personality. And that's okay. But that's not, there's a point where you've got to take yourself out of the film and let the film speak to you and let the film become what it is. And yeah, it'll always have your flavor in it, but he was not allowed to. And I say this because time, budget, he was not allowed to step back and let the movie become its own thing, become its own entity, let the movie breathe, as Luke Skywalker says to Rey, breathe. Yeah. They didn't take the lessons of the movie into themselves, and they broke the rules of the Jedi. And so it was a blah, 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 here's an idea. Oh, let's kill Chewie. Oh no, he's back. And by the way, if you didn't realize how he died, Liz will tell you twice how he died, how he didn't die, in case you need to know, because the audience have to follow. And in one point, it was like, well, okay, all they had to say, yeah, we lost the ship. We lost one of one of the transports, but the other two made it back. But they didn't have to say twice, So I think that's what went wrong. It's such a machine, and I've been there myself. When I did Starship, that movie was such a monster of a production. Starship Rising. For those who don't know, haven't seen it, don't waste your time.
I like that film. I will. I'm defending your movie.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wait till you see the proper version. But let me tell you, the pressure I was under on that was exactly the same pressure he was under. Distributors saying, okay, this movie better be nonstop action, nonstop. There can't be any comedy. There can't be any emotional character moments. This has just got to be a roller coaster ride. And you want to make some money? I say, yes, I do, because I'm broke. Please help me. You want to make some money? Well, this is what you got to do. And it's got to be like Star Trek, but darker. And that's what I was told. That's why I did it. And I did shoot extra stuff and all this, other things that never made the cut. And then it was like, you better deliver this movie on this date or your career is going to be over. This is what I was told maybe 6 or 8 times in the run-up to finishing the movie. And I got told the same again with Starship 2. You need to deliver this movie within 2 months. And, 3 months I had to deliver the movie, and all I had was a rough cut, and I had to finish it, do the effects, and kick it out the door. Neither of those movies had a chance to breathe. And the same with Humanity's End. That movie did not have a chance to breathe and have a life of its own. So, in retrospect, then I'm going back with Humanity's End and fixing it. Doing it the way I wanted it to be done. I'm going back with Starship eventually and doing it the way it should have been done. Because, and I'm going to guess that this is my gut feeling. Rise of Skywalker should have been 2 movies, not 1. They should have said, here's the Rise of Skywalker. We didn't tell you this, but there's an episode 10, and come back next Christmas.
Could you imagine? The fan thing, I reckon, would be amazing. I think they would be super happy if that came about.
Yeah, it would have been
genuinely think they would be like, oh my God, we got another one?
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
But here's the thing, with everything they shot, they could have made 2 movies if they let the movie breathe. And, it's like the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, It would have cost them an extra $100 million. to do this, an extra, because I know how they do the budget breakdowns, but an extra Star Wars movie for an extra $100 million. Well,
It's a
come on.
no-brainer, isn't it? Even if that came out and
Yeah.
people hated it, you're still going to make more than 100 million in a couple of
Oh,
weeks, aren't you?
absolutely.
Easily, easily.
Absolutely. So here's what
Yeah.
they're going to do. So they did this with Endgame. It is my guess. They probably won't, but they might. Let's re-release Endgame, and here's an extra scene in Endgame that we didn't put in the first version. So they're going to say after Christmas, oh, you like that Rise of Skywalker movie? Yes, it's coming out on Blu-ray. I think they're not going to do it, but it's coming out on Blu-ray. Well, here's the extended cut that goes three hours, not 2.5, an extra half an hour of all the stuff you wanted. Here it is. And we're going to hand it over to you, and you've got to go back to the cinema and watch Rise of Skywalker again so that we can make an extra $500,000. And, that's what they should do.
If that happened, would you rush off back to the cinema to watch it, or would you just go, do you know what, I'm going to wait for it to hit home release? I'd probably wait for the home release, I think. There's very few films nowadays where I would go back to cinema twice.
I would go back.
Would you go back?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people who had a problem with, the Rise of Skywalker initially would go back to see if they fixed it. And, it's like the extended cut of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I love them. I refuse to ever watch the theatrical versions.
Yeah, it's no point. I'm a bit like that with Aliens.
Yeah.
I love the theatrical one, and that was the one that I grew up with. But then when the VHS came out with the special edition,
exactly,
and then that's the one I always watch. But then Annette and I went to a cinema screening of Aliens at the Grimfest. Sometimes do a science fiction festival every couple of years, and they were showing a special screening of that, and it's like, oh, what's the theatrical? It's still kind of cool because that's the way it would have been seen back in the day. Part of you is like, oh, I want the sentry guns. Why are they not there?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do we not get to see the attack on the colony?
Yeah, well, exactly. And why can't we go back to see Newt with her brother?
Yeah, exactly. That wasn't in there, but it was still kind of cool. But
yeah, I think that would be a smart move. Doesn't mean they'll do it, because I think they're too disorganized to really pull that one off. I don't think there's enough, going on there. Now, the interesting point is, around the time of, Kevin Feige has announced he's doing a Star Wars movie, but he hasn't said what. Mark Hamill was not involved in the press on any of this movie. He was pissed. You could tell. He is pissed off about Rise of Skywalker because he should have come back and done more cool stuff, and
he didn't really do much, did he? I think at one point I was thinking, is he going to be back in this one, or is he just stepping this one out? But
he stepped it out, and I'm very sad about that. And they punished him because he was too vocal. And if they were smart, they would do and in my opinion, episode 6, 7, 8, and 9 is in fact 10, 11, and 12. They would now go back and do the real episode 6, 7, and 9 and do it with de-aging or something.
Yeah. They couldn't. Obviously, Princess Leia you would have some issues with.
But maybe the Luke Skywalker movie. Because I'm gonna reckon a guess. Okay, the Luke Skywalker Jedi Academy movie, or whatever it is, just call it Skywalker or something. So after Return of the Jedi, Luke goes off on his own and has something happening.
Yep.
And they get Mark Hamill back and give him his own movie to kind of fill the gap.
Yeah.
And
because there's a lot of gap to fill, isn't there, really?
Wouldn't you like to see that movie?
I would like to see that movie.
Yeah. Wouldn't we all like to see that, and de-age and get Harrison Ford back and de-age Harrison Ford, stick him on the Millennium Falcon. And I'll tell you why this might be a possibility is Kevin Feige is a big Star Wars fan, and he's probably on like me, standing on the background going, oh man, no, that's not what they should have done. They should have done this. He's gone to Kathleen Kennedy and said, I'm so angry about Last Jedi now, Rise of Skywalker. This is what I want to do. Please, can I do it? I just did the Marvel movie. I want to do this. And she was going to say, yeah, you're right. Do it. Just do it. Because Kevin Feige, he knows what he's doing. and that's what he should do. And I believe that's my guess is what he'll probably do. He wants to bring back Star Wars that we love, and I think if Kevin Feige does one, it'll be something we all enjoy, because they are directionless and it's pretty obvious. And it takes a visionary to lead, and I don't think there's a visionary, in Lucasfilm right now, and that's a pity. There is, but they're not in charge.
Right.
So what did you think about Chewbacca's death?
I kind of knew that it wasn't going to happen because it just felt very, he's gone. I'm thinking, no, if they were going to do it, it would have been more epic than that. It would have been like a Han Solo moment.
Yeah.
And that did shock me when I first saw Force Awakens and Han. I know people that went, you could see that coming. I genuinely did not see that coming at all.
Yeah.
When he's there, and I'm like, oh my God, because you just did not expect them to bump off Han Solo in the first of this new trilogy.
Yeah.
That genuinely hit me. But when the Chewbacca thing came, I'm like,
he'll be back.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
It was a bit of a cheap shot, I felt.
Yeah.
Oh, and the C-3PO mind erase thing. What did you think of that?
It was humorous. It was probably, the feeling I got from that was probably the same one you got from Hux, where it just made you chuckle. You're like, that's kind of funny. This whole Baba Frick, he's my best friend. You're like that.
Yeah, that was funny.
It was nice to have some humor in. There wasn't as much humor as Last Jedi. So I had no problem with the humor in Last Jedi either. The chucking of the lightsaber made me chuckle when I saw that. So I certainly didn't come out of Last Jedi angry or right, that's it. They've ruined my childhood. And the same way I didn't come out of Rise of Skywalker going, JJ, burn in hell.
Yeah, I don't think you should burn in hell. I feel for the guy. It's look, he's a human being with a life, with a family, with a company to run, a big major company. Bad Robot's a big company. I've seen their building, and he's got a lot of responsibility. And then for him to run off and direct a movie, and then he can't step back and sit there and ponder the movie and ponder. He has, okay, it's done. I've got to move on. Because he's got so much in his life. And if he was I dare I say this, a single guy without a company to run, who's really invested in story, like whoever, I think he would have done a better job because he would have been, mentally clear to do it. And I don't think he could have done a better job considering all the stuff he's dealing with in life. It's impossible. George couldn't pull it off. George was so distracted with running Lucasfilm that he couldn't focus properly on the prequels, and that's what Neil Johnson has learned from these people and stepped back and said, I have to isolate myself from the world in order for me to make a great piece of art, because you don't want to have the distractions and the voices, and both these men have voices in their head and producers telling them things. That's why I think I'm doing my best work now. It's because I've stopped listening to the voices. I've silenced everybody.
And you need to, don't you?
You do.
I remember when I'd done the Comic-Con documentary thing that I'd done, which was my experiment in, can I turn something I've already shot into something that's, watchable or whatever. And I'd put it on there, and I think Fraser from Cops and Monsters, he messaged me and he said, I liked it. Would you like some notes on it? And I went, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah.
No, I don't want your notes on it. It's what I've done. I'm kind of happy with it. That's all I'm bothered about.
Yeah.
If he'd have said, you want some notes and I guarantee you'll make money from it, I'd be like, what are them notes? Send them over to me now. In fact, I'll phone you up. Read them out, please. Thank you. But no, I was good. And I'm the same with the Mimi films as well.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting them to come out and be the most amazing film in the history of cinema. But if they're watchable and I like them, then I'm okay with that.
I can't wait for Mimi. This is who I have to step back with things and say, I just want to sit and enjoy it for whatever it is. And, I'm the first person to say, I won't give you notes because I want to enjoy I want to enjoy it and just sit there and just be a fan, and be honest, I'm a fan of what you're doing. I'm excited to see, especially if it's black and white, because I know you're toying with the idea.
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
you do whatever you want, Stuart. If you make it black and white, great. If not, great too. But you do what speaks. If the material speaks to you and says that I need to be black and white, I get this, Stuart. I truly get this.
Well, it was like, I think it was Bob who he asked, something about how things have changed from the first one to the second one. And I said, well, running time wise, they're probably going to be the same. They're going to be like a quarter of an hour each or whatever it is, give or take. I shot an hour and a quarter for each one though, so who knows what length they'll be. I shot everything, but the first one was shot in 9 hours, I think, in a single location, and I came out with 1 hour 14 worth of footage.
Wow.
And weirdly enough, that's exactly the same number that I came out with the second one. I don't know how. That's just one of them weird things. But that was shot in about 3 hours in the single location. So I'm getting there.
Which was more enjoyable, the process?
I enjoyed the process of the second one.
Yeah.
Reason being, the first one, there was myself, there was Annette, there was Lamissa, and there were her two parents, and then me. The second one, it was just me, Lamissa, and Lamissa's mum. So there was less people for me to go, right, do I need to hurry this up because I'm conscious you lot are stood over there waiting for me to finish it. And I'd learned a little bit from the first one. Not only about how to use the camera, but also to design where the shot was going to go. So for the second one, we got to the location where, remember when we flew the drone up in the outdoor location? That's where the second one was shot. It was a case of, right, I know where the location is in my head. I know what I need to be able to sit the camera on to point up in the exact direction to capture what I need to way before I got there.
Yeah.
So I had everything in a bag. And hopefully with the third one, which will be like January, February, I think, which is another single location one with just me and Lamissa in the actual, in front of the camera, and Lamissa's mum behind the camera for a lot of it. I'll have learned a lot by then as well. And then I'll have all three films shot, and then I could do what you're doing, but nowhere near on the same scale. I could just lock myself in a room and go, right, I'm going to edit it till it's done, and then do it all in one go.
But you see, Stuart, it is the same scale because it means as much to you as it does to me. And because, the amount of learning you have to go through, I still have to learn how to do things. I have to teach myself new skills every time to this day.
Yeah.
So it's, it really is important to you. And I that's why I'm very excited by the process. It's like your first time, in a way. It's like you are doing what you are doing is magic, but you don't realize how magical it is until 10 years later. So
I still think of it as an experiment, and I will tell people like, "Oh, you're making a film? Well, kind of. It's a bit of an experiment." In the same way that Annette and I haven't eaten meat since the end of October, other than me with obviously the sausage roll incident, which was not fun. But other than that, and she happily tells people, "Yes, I'm a vegetarian," whereas I'm still, well, I'm not a vegetarian. I just don't eat meat, and it's an experiment. So I'm kind of the same with the filmmaking. I'm still not comfortable going, I'm a filmmaker, and because I've made the ingredients, I've shot all the footage and I have the music and everything, so I've got all the ingredients ready. But can I turn it into something that's edible? That only then will I go, I've made a film.
Yeah, and you know what? You will. You will make it edible, at least to your taste. I like eating. I used to like eating chicken breast that was really dry and stringy, and I cooked a meal once for my family, and nobody else liked it. But I thought it was great, So we all have our own tastes and flavor, and as long as you please yourself, I think that's a very good step forward.
Yeah,
and
I'm just worried about things like, because obviously, I don't want to get to the point where it's like, oh no, something doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because I can't go back and reshoot stuff. I could to a certain extent.
But she's aged, hasn't she?
She's aged. I mean, she has aged. When I was talking to Lamissa's mum just before we were doing the second one, she was like, right, so do you need her to wear the same things that she wore last time? I went, no. I said, because I've written it into the storyline that the between the first one being shot and set is exactly the same amount of time for the second one. So it's fine. And then the third one will be written in that it's, so people aren't going to go, that's kind of weird. So it's that she's aged. I'd shot a flashback scene from the first one when we shot the second one, but like shot it was when it was going dark.
Yeah.
So I'm like, look, just make sure she's wearing the same dressing gown that she was wearing at the end of the first one. It's fine. Right. Well, how do you need it to look? I'm like, I'm not going to see her face. Just going to shoot her from behind, or as long as her hair color is the same color, it's fine. It's not a problem. So you won't be able to tell the difference on that. But I would never go back and shoot the face to then use in a film that was set like a year ago. So I'm very conscious of all those sort of craziness. But it's kind of like, remember the film I was talking to you about where they'd reverse the shot in the pallet fight scene.
Yes,
It's
yes,
like
yes, I do.
I am so nervous about getting to that point and go, that thing that I really, really need, I don't have. How do I do it? But I don't think I need to get to that point. But that's probably one of my concerns. It's like, oh no, I need that bolt to be able to hold these two planks together, and I don't have one.
Yeah, well,
I think I'm okay.
I actually learned something from George Lucas once. I don't know, I learned a lot, but one thing he said to me, when you're shooting a movie, it's like you're gathering raw materials. You can't think of it as, oh, every shot's going to capture like the whole movie. It's all pieces. It's all you're gathering raw materials to create a perfect picture. And so the only way to stop yourself from having those problems is shoot as much as possible, and overthink a little bit. Oh, maybe I need this extra shot. I've done that many times myself. As do I need an extra shot? Not really, but I'm just going to do it. And in the end, I thank God I shot it.
Yep.
So that's the lesson of life. But you've got to be allowed to make those mistakes in the first time, so you can learn, why you do certain things. And I think that's that's part of the lesson. But it's every mistake you make, and I've probably made more mistakes than any other filmmaker on the planet. That's why I'm only starting to get good now. And this is a director of 32 years, and I'm not saying I'm good. I'm not saying
I say you are. I've got several of your movies and I like them.
Yeah, you just wait. Just when you see what's coming.
You're going to be your own critic, though, aren't you? You're never going to watch. I wouldn't have thought. You're never going to watch one of your films and go, do you know what? That's amazing. I really, really enjoyed that. It's great. Nothing I would change whatsoever. I think you're probably going to be like, oof, I'd do that different.
Yeah, I do have one of the movie Chrononaut, which is one of my lowest budget movies. I'm pretty proud of that, even though all the actors hate me with a vengeance. I don't know why. I do know why, but I didn't do anything wrong. It's just gossip and whatever. But I'm quite proud of that. Yeah, I'll probably actually no. You're right. There is a bunch of stuff.
Exactly.
You see, yeah, completely right. And that's the artist. Very interesting point on that, actually. I did a lot of screenwriting classes when I was young in mid-90s, 92, 93, 94, by, people who'd written screenplays in Australia who probably didn't have the experience of the Americans, but they'd done some stuff. And so I did a lot of screenwriting courses in Sydney. And I remember one screenwriting teacher sat me down. He says, class, well, how do you know when a script is done? How do you know when your script is finally done? And I said, sir, I don't believe it's ever done. I believe, there's always an evolving process with scripts, and there's always some point where you can improve it or make it better. And the same with a movie. He says, no, Mr. Johnson, you're wrong. So when you finish a script and it has and you feel it's good and it has that energy, it has that feeling, it kind of glows, that's how you know when it's done. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I agree with that statement,
No, I don't.
Now, go ahead 20 years later, the guy's never had a produced screenplay. He's written a lot, he's sold a lot of scripts, but nothing's ever been produced. Meanwhile, I've leapt ahead and had a bunch of movies made. So I wonder who was right in that situation. And I think even Stanley Kubrick has said the same thing as, it's never done. When I'm in the edit room, I'm changing the movie script. I am rewriting the film in the edit room. It's never done. It's never going to be 100% perfect. It'll be acceptable to release. And back to Rise of Skywalker, I know for a fact JJ's looking at it going, huh. If he's got any artistic merit about him, he's going to look in and say, "Man, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done that." And he will probably, I would hope he does a special edition. I would hope he does. He might not because he's too, switched on to doing something new.
Yeah.
But I know I feel that way about everything.
You wish you had.
Yep. I know Stanley Kubrick felt that way. I know George Lucas felt that way. Stanley Kubrick was fixing errors and things that bugged him even after the movie was released. He would have different versions of The Shining, for example, different prints, and constantly fixing it consistently, because that's an artist. That's a true artist. They're never quite happy. Leonardo da Vinci's great works, they found evidence of him fixing his art later. Touching something up because he wasn't quite happy with it. There's been a lot of artists who've done that. They've painted over something and try to make it better. And that's the curse of an artist, So I think, with Mimi, whatever you do is right for you is right. You will for sure look back and say, I wish I'd fixed it. But as long as you make
totally. Yep.
But it's okay. It's okay to be that way. Somebody, actually, I was on the John Fouts podcast the other day, and talked about my special edition. I did a special edition of my first film where I fixed a bunch of stuff. Now in retrospect, I like the original version better.
Yeah,
because it's kind of crappy, yet it's magical in a crappy way. So we all go through that, and
it's like with E.T., isn't it? Spielberg went back and he put a couple of extra scenes in, and he took out the shotguns, put the walkie-talkies in, and then he went back and he went, bring back the shotguns. I think so. Did
he not regret that decision?
He does. Yeah, he does regret it. Yeah,
no. And that's okay. Yeah. That's it's okay to go through those points, and thank God we have an ability to undo things.
Yes.
So what else? I'm more interested in your opinion of Rise of Skywalker. I should shut up. I want you to tell me what else would you say about it for you?
Nobody seems to mention the John Williams score, which I thought was amazing. It's like this is potentially the last time John Williams will score a Star Wars movie, because he doesn't do the standalone ones, does he? And it's like there hasn't been a big thing about that.
Yeah. That's true, actually.
The score was pretty epic. I mean, it's consistently epic. It's not been like, oh, this is better than the other score he did. They've all been amazing.
Yeah.
What I did love is this, as far as I know, is the first time they've ever actually used the Star Wars theme within the film. When the ships came out and they actually played the theme part itself. I don't think that's ever been done before, other than over the opening crawl.
I felt so excited when that happened.
It felt a bit weird. You're like, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Even though you knew what the music was, it kind of felt out of place in a good way. You're like, huh? Oh,
yeah.
That's quite clever.
I got a chills when I saw all those spaceships arriving.
And it was...
Yeah.
I think with the characters, I mean, I grew up with Han, Leia, Chewie, Darth, etc. And after watching Jedi, I always wondered what happened to them. Where did they go? What did they do? Are they okay? I don't get that from Rey, Finn, Poe. I'm not sitting here going, I wonder what's going to happen to them. And then maybe that's just an age thing. It probably is. I was 12 years old when Jedi came out, and I remember the time frame between Empire and Jedi being the most painful ever, because you were like, Darth can't possibly be. He's got to be lying. How's this going to work? What's going on?
Yeah.
I've had none of this from these new trilogy. I've not. I need to know who Rey's parents are. I've got to find out. I'll find out at some point.
Yeah.
I suspect that is an age thing, and
Yeah, I get your point. The only other, I tell you the other little nitpick I have, and again it's small. The end of the movie, when she goes back to Tatooine.
Yeah.
And she flies the Millennium Falcon. There should have been Chewie, C-3PO and R2-D2, not BB-8, or as well as. They should have kept C-3PO's memory erased.
Yeah.
And then, okay, bang, here we are back on Tatooine. He steps off the Millennium Falcon. He looks around. He says, "Oh, what a desolate place this is."
Yeah, no, that would have been a really nice throwback,
and
actually.
and then he could have turned to Ray, oh, and R2 says something. He says, "Oh, Ray, what is this place?" Well, she knows this is something. She says something clever. And then C-3PO. Oh, by the way, well, Ray, what's your last name? He could have asked her the question because he had no
True.
memory.
Yeah. Rather than this old woman who we don't even know who she is.
Yeah,
It's like,
what
who are
the
you?
hell? Yeah, why
Yeah.
just casually walk past this place in the middle of nowhere? It's like being in the desert, 20 miles in the desert, and somebody just walks past and says, "Oh, hey, what's your last name?"
Yeah. Oh, yeah. None of your business. Go away.
It should have come from C-3PO because his mind was erased,
Yeah.
and it would have
No,
been
that would have been
beautiful.
good.
Yeah, it would have been a
It was
really nice moment.
it was a nice touch where she stood and looked at the two suns. I
Oh, that
thought
was
was
a
quite
beautiful
nice.
shot. The,
I
the cinematography I thought was really good,
Yeah, it was.
except for one shot was out of focus.
No, it wasn't. Was it?
You go back and when you watch it again, I'll
Oh
tell you where
no.
it is. When Ray's dead and she's lying there, or about to be dead, and she's lying on the ground and she's half exhausted. It was focused on on her robe, and not her eyes. Her eyes are out of focus, and it was very, very, very slightly out of focus. And I was, I'm a freak for focus, though. I am the guy who uh, you would pick that. You know what I mean? I'm the only
Yeah.
person who probably even knew that, but it's like, oh man. And I would have seen that and I would have gone and said, look, I know you misfocus. It's a tough gig. It's really, the lenses they used were very soft, I have to say, and very hard to work with. They're old lenses. Um, let's just reshoot her eyes and we can paste her eyes back in over the top of that. We can fix that and put it back in focus, just her eyes. Because you always focus on the eyes. The eyes have to be in focus. And it's a small, minor thing. It's a very minor thing. But, when you see that, you'll see her eyes are out of focus and her costume's in focus.
Oops.
But, that's where you should use the technology to fix stuff like that because it's like, okay, somebody just had they're bad. It's so hard to pick focus. I've committed those sins many times myself. And that's just minor stuff, but it did look good, didn't it?
It did.
It was
Yeah.
grainy. Did you notice the grain?
No, I didn't notice the grainy. No.
What did you feel? What was the vibe of the whole movie? What did you feel? It was visually. What was your feel?
Visually, it was very much like Last Jedi, where it was like, wow, this film. It didn't look like a Star Wars movie to me.
Interesting.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just if somebody said divide the Star Wars movies up to how they look, it would be Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, Force Awakens, and then the original trilogy type thing. Just so I think if you consistently, it's kind of like you watch the prequels. So there's this age-old argument: what order do you watch them in? Well, the only right answer is you watch them in the order they were released. That's the
Yeah.
only correct answer on that one. Because if you watch the prequels and you go, wow, that looks crisp. Wow, wow, whoa, what happened? What happened to A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back? What's with these haircuts? What's with these costumes?
Yeah.
And then you watch, Force Awakens and Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. You're like, I'm so confused as to why these films all look technologically different. So, but no, I went into it thinking this is maybe going to be terrible and I'm going to have to somehow justify why I liked it. The first hour I was a bit still the same. I'm like, am I going to like it? But then I settled into it. And then when the film was all concluding, I'm like, do you know what? I really enjoyed that. That
Yeah.
was quite nice. That was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point. Did you enjoy the experience?
Yeah.
You know.
I think I enjoyed it more. I'm a bit like this with music concerts. So whilst I'm watching it, I go, it's all right. But then once I've finished and I've come out, I go, do you know what? I really like that. And I've always been the same with music concerts. I enjoy them more when it's finished than
Interesting.
I do while I'm watching it for some weird reason. I think it's because while it's on, I'm trying to take everything in and look at everything and analyze everything and how am I feeling? Am I enjoying this one? Do I like this song? Not quite sure. Oh, I don't. And yet afterwards, when it replays in my head, I go, do you know what? That was great.
Yeah, and it's a little overwhelming, I
Yeah,
think too, for people like us. It's not just a movie, it's something else, So it's a last chance to revisit the childhood.
It is.
I found it very, I feel like there's a turning point in my life now, in the point where I've waited since the age of 10, I waited for the story to finish. And yes, it's not the story I would have told at all, but it's not my story to tell. And it's okay that the story, and sometimes in life your family die, your friends die, and I've lost people. Life never turns out the way you want it, and Star Wars never turns out the way you want it, but you got to take it the way it's presented and take it in your stride as a piece of humanity. That's how I look upon it. It's, I'm emotionally messed up right now, I'll be honest, about Rise of Skywalker. I really am. It's good.
I wouldn't put it in my top 10 films of the year. I don't feel the need to readjust my list, but it wouldn't be anywhere near the bottom half. No. If I had to do a top 50 films I didn't enjoy this year, that wouldn't even be close to getting on that list. So I definitely enjoyed it. But
now knowing that the Mandalorian, and I'm sorry, by the way, I turned this into an interview Stuart Bannerman podcast.
It saves me from coming up with questions. I'm cool with that.
But knowing that The Mandalorian is the most downloaded TV show in the world to date of anything, wow. And knowing that people kind of like it, and knowing that you officially have not seen it.
Exactly. It's like March 31st. Thanks, Disney.
Yeah. The rest of the world has it. And then knowing that possibly somebody may have somehow, have you seen any other?
I may have watched all of episode 1 and part of episode 2 due to time reasons and stuff. The first time I was watching The Mandalorian, I think I watched it for about 15 minutes. I'm like, it seems all right, but I'll watch it later on. For some reason, I wasn't in the mood to sit and watch it. And then a few days ago, I thought, right, let's give it another go. And I sat and watched the first episode. Thoroughly loved it. Really good. I'm interested to see where this little Baby Yoda creature comes from, because people keep calling it Baby Yoda, and it can't be Baby Yoda. Maybe it can be. I don't know. But the time scale, it can't be Baby Yoda. Yoda was 800 years old before The Mandalorian was on.
Yeah.
So it's like he cannot possibly be 50 years old unless some sort of weird storyline comes out that there's a clone or something like that. But I think the internet has become a little bit obsessed with Baby Yoda.
And that's a beautiful thing, because it was unexpected. And it's unexpected because there were no toys.
No, they dropped the ball there, didn't they?
Oh, did they ever? But that's a great thing, because like in the original Star Wars, they didn't have the toys ready either. So it's it's really a nice situation with that. Now, here's my theory on that: is have you seen the bit where there's a Imperial medical officer sort of looking after him? The guy who's kind of
no.
Okay.
No,
okay.
No.
Oh,
it's okay. I'm okay. I'm not. There's a lot of people. I've just luckily managed to avoid spoilers, so I'm not like, I don't need to see any or I'm going to cry.
Well, here's a little tidbit, and I don't know if he is a clone. They haven't revealed it. I'm up to episode 6 or 7.
Wow. Okay. They have 2 more then, isn't there?
No, there's one more to go for me.
Oh, is there one more?
Yeah, okay. One more for me. There's an Imperial doctor. I think it's episode 3. You might see him, or episode 2. He's got this insignia on his uniform, and it's a cloning insignia. And it does not mean he's a clone. It might mean they're going to harvest this creature to make clones or something. I don't know. But there is something to do with cloning somewhere in that, and that's why I have to say, in my watching them all, it's a great show, and it's very Star Warsy, and it did give me. Episode 3 was magic. Episode 2 is magic because they're on the sandcrawler. Nice. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are okay, are good. Episode 7 is incredible. Absolutely, the best one, I think. So there is hope for you, young Stuart.
There is. March the 31st when it actually comes out.
Yeah.
But thankfully people aren't really ruining it now. I mean, the first initial episode 1 coming out, the internet was full of memes, and so it was kind of annoying a lot of people in the UK there going, thanks a bunch.
Yeah.
But it does seem to have died down enough that not everybody's had it ruined yet, which is quite pleasant.
It's there's not that many big secrets in it anyway. They're just kind of doing it. And I like that approach. It's definitely a refreshing piece of cinema or television, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
It's definitely refreshing. And the similarities between that and Rogue Warrior are shocking. And when I say shocking, I mean shocking.
Do you think the shocking in like people might watch Rogue Warrior not aware that it was out before and go, oh my God, look at this guy. He's ripped off the Mandalorian.
It looks like a complete rip to the point of dialogue, scenes, scenarios. The spaceship is the same shape. To the point of the Mandalorians walking through the desert, a very similar desert, with a floating ball that looks like Hoagland.
Yes, he is. Yeah. That's true, actually. I've seen that bit. Yeah.
The latest teaser poster art they did for it is the exact same layout as Rogue Warrior, our main poster for Rogue Warrior. I don't even know if that's a coincidence, and I hope they've stolen from me because it's great. It means I'm worth stealing from. And if they haven't, it just means we all have the same good ideas, and that's a great thing. It's okay. I don't care. If they rip me off, I will high five John Favreau and Dave Filoni, because it's thank you for ripping me off because I was worthy. If they didn't, fine. I don't care. It's nice. It's George Lucas ripped off Flash Gordon. Martin Scorsese ripped off the French New Wave cinema of the 60s to the point where, have you seen that Scorsese movie, The Irishman?
I did. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more when it was finished, which I will explain. Well, near enough when it was finished, because I made a whole big thing. I think Annette was going out. She was staying out overnight or whatever. And I'm like, right, well, I'm going to devote the entire afternoon. I'm going to get some food, pizza. Right, I'm going to watch The Irishman because this is an event. This is a 3.5-hour Martin Scorsese film with a great cast and all that, so I'm going to make an event of it. And I did. And whilst watching it, I'm like, this is good. It's all right. It's not Casino. It's not Goodfellas, but that's fine because this is The Irishman. So therefore it's a different film. But then as it carried on, I thought, never again am I going to watch a new Scorsese film that will feature Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, and Joe Pesci. And let alone am I going to be able to watch this on its technical day of release in my house. Yeah. This is weird. How am I watching a new Scorsese, Pacino, De Niro, Pesci film in my living room? It's weird. So that kind of freaked me out a little bit. Yeah. But I enjoyed it. Oh, it was a good film. I would probably watch it again maybe once.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy it. I found the de-aging technology a little bit weird in places.
It's like everyone had Botox.
Especially De Niro. I think his was the worst.
Yeah. And I noticed it got better.
Yeah, it did.
It's because they figured out some, problems.
I mean, you go back and you watch Tron Legacy, then, de-aging technology has come on leaps and bounds since then. The Jeff Bridges character was not wonderfully de-aged at all, even though I love that movie. But, so no, I enjoyed it. What did you think?
I thought...
Not a fan?
No. Look, I love his films. And I didn't think it was his best. I felt there was no reason for it to be 3.5 hours long.
No.
It was like, okay, let's show Robert De Niro getting out of the car, walking around, going here, going there. That's not cinema. That's not clever cinema. That's a rough cut. And you don't need to see this. Yet he did it, and I praise him for doing it because he had the balls to do it. And I get his point because that's a certain style of movie that was big in the 60s and 70s and the 50s, so artistically it was valid. And I felt, yes, it did contribute to the characterization. But For a guy who sat there and said the Marvel movies are not movies,
Yeah.
yet steals their technology and uses it for his movie to essentially make the Marvel movies perfected the de-aging.
Hmm.
And then to use their technology yet talk crap about them. I thought was an odd thing. And then to make
It was.
this, it's like, man, if you made a movie that was so sharp and so good and so real and so visceral as a response to the Marvel movies, that would have been smart. That would have been a class act for him to do. Say, look, this is how movies are made. This is the real cinema. I'm going back to my roots. I'm going to make a movie like I did in the '70s or the '80s or even the '90s. Yeah, he's pretty good at what he does. I didn't think he should have followed up his comment about Marvel's movie with his best effort, and I didn't think it was. I felt it was, it again, he should have sat on it for 3 months and watched it and said, "Nah, this is too long. I should make it shorter, or I should tighten it up," because it didn't really contribute. The actors are good enough that you can get a sense of character in one look, one shot, one moment. You don't need to show him walking to show his body language from the car to the house to get the same point. So when you're critical and when you go publicly and say something like Marvel movies, these are not movies, you then turn the lens on yourself, and then therefore you must accept the same criticism you're putting on other people. So I will watch it again, but I know the movie's going to date really badly because the de-aging was like, oh no.
Yeah.
The,
It looked like, I mean, De Niro looked like he was wearing black eyeliner. I remember
yeah,
thinking, I'm like, is he turned into John Cusack? How
yeah.
does that work?
And
Yeah.
if the best VFX is the ones you don't notice. But
Yes.
I was like, I spent my time analyzing the movie, going, um, I wouldn't attempt doing this. My lessons of doing the first digital movie on the planet, and doing a lot of digital movies and a lot of VFX and everything else. The lesson I have learned is if you can do it practical, if you can do it real, do it real. Don't
Yeah.
don't go there. Don't put prosthetics. You know, light them differently. They look pretty old. Then
Yeah.
maybe that's not the movie you should make. Maybe you shouldn't try it because, yeah, we miss those great moments. But maybe you shouldn't make that movie. Maybe you should recast it. And it's always the mistake people make when they try to push it too far. The same in Prometheus. When you've got the old man,
Or Guy
Guy
Pearce.
Pearce.
Yeah, that was dreadful.
Just put an
Yeah.
old man in there.
Isn't it?
Come on,
But it was
it's casting. Be clever, and that.
now somebody came out with a good point. They were on about the de-aging technology, and he said, imagine if this technology was always with us, you would never have got Robert De Niro in The Godfather Part 2. It would have been a de-aged Marlon Brando,
I
and we would
know.
have lost one of the greatest cinema performances, which was De
Exactly.
Niro.
And
It's like you would never have had it.
haven't you just hit the nail on the head?
Yeah.
Haven't you just defined exactly what's the problems? And I am guilty. I am the first person to say I'm guilty of those sins. But haven't you just nailed it exactly? What a great movie! Don't you just want to sit down and watch The Godfather Part Two?
I like them all. I
Yeah,
rewatched the third one probably a couple of months ago, just on a standalone, because I
yeah.
thought, you know what, I've not seen the third one for a long time. I'll still like it. It's going to suffer comparing to the first and second one, but as a movie, there's a lot worse movies out nowadays that get better praise than The Godfather 3.
Yeah, it's okay. But you want to. When the moment you mentioned that, I thought, man, I want to sit down and watch a Godfather Part One and Two right now. And that's
Yeah,
what. And the reason I say that is it was shot with an honesty. It's shot with a
yeah.
texture and a truth and a reality. Have you ever seen Once Upon a Time in America?
I was just thinking about that then.
Yeah,
I was going to actually say that. It's like that's another one of those films where I could go, do you know what? I want to sit down and watch that right now.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly, because that's what Scorsese's movie made me want to do, is watch those movies again. It wanted me to go back and watch the texture and the life and the truth and the reality of these things. And watching Rise of Skywalker, what does it make you want to do? It makes you want to go,
Play a video game.
yeah,
Pretty much. That's what a
yeah.
lot of modern sci-fi, these big $200 million behemoths, they make me go, oh, I want to put my PlayStation on.
But don't you want to go back also and watch Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi?
Oh, always. So how do we rank them?
Oh,
right. So obviously, we'll put the Ewok movies at the very bottom because why wouldn't you?
uh,
But
yeah.
how, what would be your favorite Star Wars movie out of
Well,
all? Let's just say nine, or if you want to include Solo and Rogue One, you can do.
okay. Can we go from worst to best?
Yes.
Okay, because I've got a couple of things to say here.
Okay.
Um, the worst, and I don't mean this as a criticism, would be the second Ewok movie.
Yeah, the Battle for Endor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or was it Caravan of Courage,
No,
which
the
was the
Battle for
second one?
Endor was the
Battle
worst.
for Endor was yeah, that's definitely the worst.
And then the Caravan of Courage, because at least it had a young kid who looked like Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, it did.
I liked him, you know.
Yeah.
I kind of liked little bits of it. And then you see a spaceship, you know.
I'm going to try and find out what happened to that kid and do an
Oh,
article about
no,
it.
he's around.
Is he around?
Yes.
I'm going to dig. You will see an article about what happened to him. I'm going to
Oh,
go looking
dude,
for
you
it.
can do an interview with him. He's around. He's a really nice guy. He really is a great guy. He's in Los Angeles somewhere. So you can find him. Yes, I know he's around.
That's my new homework. And the reason being is that I was looking at my website, and the best articles I've ever done have always been these 10-minute put together things. What happened to?
Yeah.
So there's like the family from Lethal Weapon, Charlene Tilton from Dallas, the kids from Jaws.
Charlene Tilton from
They
Dallas?
consistently get.
I know her.
You do know her. I did one of those about her. And they're literally only like 15, 20 lines because I thought I just want to put a little article out. But these damn things still get hits.
Yeah.
So I said to Annette the other day, I said, I'm going to do more of these what happened to's whenever I come up with a name. So the fact we touched upon the kid from Ewoks, right? That's going to be my next one. So
Charlene Tilton used to live up the road from me. She's a
did she?
bundle of laughs, a bubbly girl, wonderful human being. Anyway, sorry. Okay, the ranking.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, the second worst, Caravan of Courage.
Yep.
And then I'm going to say the Star Wars Holiday Special. Why do
I've never seen that,
Well, I did.
I know.
Why do
it's
I?
on YouTube somewhere, so
You should watch it.
probably.
Why do I rank it now so high? I had a weird moment 2 days ago. No, just after watching Rise of Skywalker, somebody posted, and I came home and I was like, oh, it's a bit funny emotionally. Somebody posted Princess Leia singing the Life Day song at the end. She sings to the Star Wars theme tune.
Oh no!
It's horrible.
Oh no, it is.
But,
Sounds horrible.
But let me tell you something. I sat there and I watched this, and it actually made me cry because there's Carrie Fisher in her prime, standing next to Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill in their original Star Wars costumes, singing a song to some Wookiees about life. And it was so horrible yet beautiful. And I think to myself, I used to despise this. Now I'm like, this is actually a beautiful moment. Because it's really disgustingly, terrible is what it is. Yet it's beautiful because there's a human who's now dead. And there's two other people who've now aged and are gone. Their youth is gone in a moment in history. And it's really quite an amazing moment. Yet, so it's now it's actually gone up in my rankings because of life, because of what we went through. So, and there's a Boba Fett cartoon in the middle, which is quite good, yet weird. So I would say Holiday Special. And then, now then getting to the movies themselves, I'm not going to hate on. I don't hate any of the movies, by the way, because I don't hate. But you can't hate them.
I dislike one of them.
Well,
but I don't dislike it enough to hate it. But it is my least favorite. So.
Well, Phantom Menace would be my next.
Really, no, Attack of Clones is mine.
I tell you why I put Phantom Menace at the bottom. Because it was so much build up, and yet such a disappointment, and it was just like, oh, I mean, I did enjoy it, and I do like watching it, but as far as the rewatch goes, it's just, oh, here we are again. It just seems very presentational, and where George Lucas was in a weird place. He was very much mentally in a different place. So I would put that one there. Then I would do Attack of the Clones. because I'm very fond of Attack of Clones because I had a lot to do with it, so it's a personal thing, and it's got some great moments. It's got my little friend Daniel. He's not little. It's got Daniel Logan in it. It's got Christopher Lee in it, both of which I've had friendships with. And there's a lot of stuff in there I enjoyed. Yeah, there's bad moments, but I look at the good moments and I like them.
I think for me, the only reason I don't like Attack of the Clones is nothing to do with the storyline or the performances or anything. It just looks too much like an animated movie.
Absolutely.
To me, and that's that's the single reason why that is the least favorite. Where I love all the other ones that are pretty much practical. Obviously, some of the new ones and stuff are a little bit different, but out of the prequels, that's the one that looks too fake.
It was bold at the time. It was a bold, bold decision that movie revolutionized filmmaking. Yeah. But we don't, when you look back, that revolutionized everything. But that's why it looks so bad now. And you think it wasn't even shot on a 4K camera; it's shot on a 2K camera, and they had to upscale it, and it looks remarkably good for how they did it. So it's okay. So then stepping up from there,
see, mine would be Sith, and then Phantom Menace. So that's the slightly different order.
See, okay. So this is going to sound really weird. I would probably put the next one. I would probably put in the list is the Han Solo movie.
Okay. Yep.
And I loved it, but it didn't have a director's vision. It had two director's visions, and it was a rush
technically
job.
3, wasn't it? I think was it sort of 2, and then well, you two can get lost. We'll bring it on outward. Yep.
And I always go back to the fact that the background Wookiee, the secondary Wookiee, was the physical. For all the money that thing cost, you could see the budget, the lack of budget on screen. With the Wookiee makeup of the secondary Wookiee and that whole Kessel area looked really cheap, and the costuming of the creatures in the Kessel Run and the Kessel planet is really cheap, So it needed extra spray paint to fix some things or something, Anyway, so Han Solo, and then this is where it gets painful for me.
Rogue One for me.
No, yeah. Yep. No. I'm going to put that up on the list. I'm going to probably put Rise of Skywalker next. And it's just for missed opportunity, yet I'm going to have to watch that thing at least 20 times because I actually did enjoy it. It's going to change right now today. Rise of Skywalker. And then, man, what's next? Then I would say Force Awakens. Then I would say Last Jedi.
Yep.
Then
I've got mine flipped. So mine would be Last Jedi and then Force Awakens as we move further up.
I have a problem with Force Awakens when they could see those laser beams, from the planet. It's like, come on, that's bad science.
Yeah.
That's just bad science. That disgusted me. How bad, It's like, okay. Then let's see. Hang on. This is so painful to me even talk.
It's hard work, isn't it? It's not even picking the worst doesn't mean you hate it.
And then I would do Revenge of the Sith at the top of all those because of Ian McDiarmid. Because he's so deliciously delightful. I want to watch those scenes over and over and over again. And then I would put Rogue One because somebody had heart at one point, and the end scene, even though the editing was terrible at the end, just the way they cut it, just the last 10 seconds were just wrongly paced. I loved Rogue One. And then I would say I'd put The Mandalorian as a complete entity above that.
Yeah, I can't comment on that one, obviously. Thank you, Disney.
And then I would do Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, and Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I would do my favorite Star Wars movie is Jedi.
Interesting. It is good.
Then probably Empire, then New Hope, and the original trilogy very close. But out of pure nostalgia, Return of Jedi, going into that as a 12-year-old, not having seen anything Star Wars other than reruns of the first one on TV or whatever, was like, wow, what is going to happen? There was so many Tell me these answers I've been waiting for years, that I will always have a fondness for Jedi.
Interesting. See, Empire Strikes Back was my film school.
Yeah.
Because I was 13 and I would go to. I've decided around that time I really wanted to make movies, and I went to the cinema. I think I saw it in the cinema 81 times.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And I would watch it and take notes.
Yeah.
And I was 13. I mean, you know, some kids are chasing girls at 13.
Yeah. No, I was playing with Star Wars figures in sand pits and polystyrene blocks when I was 12. So, you know, I feel you. I'm right there.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
I was in England just before that, and I had a Star Wars Christmas in England, and it was the best Christmas ever because all the Star Wars toys, you know, had finally hit the shelves properly. So it's 79. Christmas of 79 was great. Then I went to high school. Then Empire Strikes Back came out, and all I did was, you know, watch Empire Strikes Back. So, yeah. So what's your numbers?
My numbers were my favorite ones were Jedi, Empire, New Hope. I've forgotten now. Forgotten them all. Prequels. I prefer Phantom Menace out of all three of them. Then Revenge of the Sith, and then Attack of the Clones. And new ones, I prefer Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, probably the order that they came out.
Mm-hmm. And what about Rogue One and Han Solo?
I like Rogue One, but it didn't feel, again, that suffered with the, hey, do you want to direct a film? Right, get lost. We're going to bring somebody else in to finish it off.
Yeah.
It suffered with that again. So I would love to see the original version of Rogue One that was shot, the super dark sort of war movie. You watch the trailer, there's loads of little clips in that were never even in the film.
Yes.
See the original one of that one. But I don't know, Rogue One I enjoy. I've seen it twice. It's like, okay, I'm done. I don't need to rewatch that. And Solo I did enjoy because it was critically bashed.
Yeah.
And I was expecting it to be terrible. And I watched it and I had good fun.
It was a fun movie.
It's kind of good. I don't need to watch it again, but it was okay. It was good.
Well, it was
entertainment.
Fun. And my little buddy Ray Park, who I've hung out with a couple of times, and only a couple, but he was in it, and I was so overjoyed to see him there.
Well, I was overjoyed because one of my friends was in Rise of Skywalker, and I didn't even know.
Who?
Joseph Alton, who he's been in Game of Thrones and all sorts of stuff. I was swapping tweets with him this afternoon and wishing him Merry Christmas and May the Force be with you. He played one of the Rebel pilots, or the Alliance pilots, Vadik. So it's so nice to see people, because he's been in a lot of British films.
Yeah.
Tons, you name it, he's been in it type thing. And then you're like, hang on a minute, what's he doing in this?
You know, I would have liked to have seen them put Zara Fithian in that. If I'd done the Jedi Army at the end, the Ghost Jedi Army, and they all come to life, somebody like Zara Fithian would have been so good in that, as if in the foreground, beating the crap out of a Sith Lord or something, or as a Sith Lord.
Yep.
It would have been so good, And
I'd love to get this, start a petition, get it reshot.
Oh no, please no! These horrible people.
I don't understand it. It's like, what? Did they ever think that Disney are going to go, do you know what? I know we've made £1 billion off this film, and it cost us 200 million, but there's a bunch of people out there that'd like us to remake it.
Yeah,
let's do it. No, it's never going to be a.
It's such an egotistical thing to do,
isn't it?
Oh,
it's like you sort of said ages ago. It was a case of, you've got an opinion. Would you have done it differently? Yes, you would have. But however, that's not your film.
No, and I probably would have made less money.
I wouldn't have made any money. Mine would still be sitting on a hard drive, just waiting to be edited.
Let me figure out this. Yeah, that's the thing. The moment people criticize, shut up and make your own movie is what I would say to them. Don't you tell me what to do until you've done it yourself. And the moment you do it yourself, then you suddenly get a different opinion. And
it's difficult. It's really difficult making a film. I mean, I knew it was going to be difficult anyway, but it's not easy. So, let alone if somebody gives you $200 million to make a film. I would hate for somebody to give me $200 million. Well, actually, I would like it, because I would just give you $190 million going, here you go, Neil, go make me a film, and then come back, and then I'd just sit there and spend my $10 million.
Yes.
But, yeah, the pressure on it, I can't even imagine.
Well, how having made Mimi, how does this change you as a filmmaker now? Sorry, as a film fan, shall we say?
It doesn't at all. No,
Interesting.
I've always been. I remember having a conversation with Stu Miller, who would he would bash a film whether it cost 100 million or whether it cost £100. And I remember asking him, saying, "Look, if a film was really low budget, would you cut it some slack?" And he went, "No, I treat it exactly the same." And that's one thing that I would never do. I would never go, right, I'm going to judge like a Neil Johnson film against Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame. Because you go, well, you know what? If with a $200 million budget, if something didn't work, you can go, just redo that. It's
Yeah,
fine. Do
yeah.
it again, do it again, do it again. But when you're at the lower than $200 million, you don't have that luxury. So I think as a film reviewer, and it hasn't changed me at all, but it's just given me more of an insight into how films are put together. You know, like watching Rise of Skywalker with the Carrie Fisher stuff. It was like, well, that's very clever because they're using footage that was shot before the script was even written. How have they written the questions that she then responds to? How have
Oh,
they shot it? And it's that I thought that I was watching that sort of very analytically. It was clever.
I have an opinion on that, and here's my valid opinion because I have had the same problem. um, I've had a couple of actors die on me. I had a situation in this current movie, The Time War. I've been in the exact situation. I was afraid an actor was going to commit suicide. I was horrified that he would do this because of a situation that went down. So I ran over to his place and I shot a whole bunch of elements on him on green screen and as much as I could. And he's still alive, thank God, but I'm piecing together multiple performances of him from those elements I shot. And I'm doing a Carrie Fisher, but thankfully the actor's still alive. So I know how hard that is, and I know what you have to do. And I thought it was okay, but I think they could have. It was a little bit, and I'm a guy on the inside. It's like, yeah, I get what you're doing, guys. They could have built better scenes around it. They could have done many more looks and moments of. They could have carried a scene with her just standing looking and Ray looking at her and just staring at each other for 2 minutes. Yeah. And it would have been even more interesting. So, it just seemed a bit, artificial.
Yeah, it seemed very sort of right. Well, let's patch this bit up.
Yeah, in the same
Let's
way.
join the seams quickly.
In the same way that Grand Moff Tarkin was thrown into Rogue One and Carrie Fisher, the CG versions. I didn't felt they were necessary, nor did they fit. So I do have I have a small problem. I had a problem with that because like, oh man, I've been there and I know how they could have fixed it, but that's again the amount of pressure they're under, the problems with a massive budget. I'm not surprised. I thought they did a good job, but it's such a complex thing to do. And this is the problem. This is the problem when you do these types of movies. You can't just, it didn't work, recut it this way, change this, change that. When you're in the edit room, you're just cutting a performance like you're cutting Mimi together. I might change this, might change that. But if you want to just nudge something here or nudge something there, if they had to nudge a performance of Carrie Fisher's, performance to make it work, well, then they have to go redo the VFX. And redo the VFX and redo the VFX. It didn't work, redo the VFX. That's the problem with these movies. Whenever I want to trim something and it's a VFX movie, it's so much work to do a little trim and an adjustment and redo. It's, it's not like a little, push a button, you can fix it. It's, okay, I want to change this. I wanted to trim this by 3 frames. Okay, see you in 3 weeks. Here's a shot. And I'm not joking. That's exactly what it's. I want to change it here. No, see you in 3 weeks. I want to change this. I'll see you in 2 days. Okay, I want to change this. In the edit room, when you've got real footage, you can fudge things around. You can do 50 changes in the space of 5 minutes. And
I think that's why I don't ever want to do anything that involves visual effects, other than maybe a credit sequence here or there. Yeah. But I'm much more comfortable just pointing a camera and capturing a performance.
Yeah.
At the minute, maybe I'll change at some point. But the style of people have asked me what sort of films I would love to have made, and it's things like Seven, or The Game, or things like that. These sort of non-visual effects movies.
Yeah. And that's
rather than Avatar.
oh,
No,
and even that looks
not for me.
dated.
Doesn't it? Just
Yeah,
it really does.
and that's my problem. I make those movies.
Yeah,
Um, and this is the problem. It's the pain of this is why us VFX filmmakers go back and fix our films later. It's because we have to.
yeah.
We have to do it. I don't know what the answers are, for the future. This is a cursed business because you think you create a piece of art and it's not valid in 5 years or 10 years. It just doesn't look like art. It looks like crap.
It's not the same with music, though. You take music from the 60s, it sounds fine now. You take music from the 80s, that sounds pretty dated, other than, the odd few tracks.
Yeah. Well,
Because you bring in technology in to do something artistic. And by technology, I mean like be it visual effects or synthesizers.
well, what's
You go
what's
back
even
and
worse?
watch.
Yeah, what's even worse is the auto tune stuff.
Oh God, yeah, yep.
You know,
You go back and you watch Assault on Precinct 13. The
yes.
film's okay, but the score is annoying to the point where you don't want to watch the film anymore
Yeah.
because it just sounds. You're like, oh no, give me a break.
Yeah. You see, you've identified exactly the pain I'm going through right now with the time.
Yeah,
And I'm really serious. This is exactly the problem. Even with the soundtrack, I'm like, it's got to be a piece from it's got to be indicative of what it is. So even though I've got VFX, I'm going back to physical models
yeah,
as much as possible. The other day, I hired a guy a violinist, an amazing violinist. I don't know if wants his name to be known.
we'll just call him a famous violinist.
Yeah, he's incredible. And I actually wrote a piece of music on the keyboard and sent it to him and said, "Could you perform this?" He did. And he sent it back, and he's incredible. But you see, it's real. It's real performance.
Yeah,
It's real music. Here we are. I can do violins on the keyboard,
yeah.
but I'm not doing it because it goes against what the film's about.
And we can tell, the audience can tell what, even if it's just slightly, I think. We're always going, hang on a minute. If you were to do a soundtrack with regular violin and then computer violin, they could sound identical, but I still think people would go, do you know what, I like that one. That's the proper violin for some reason.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
right.
and that's it. And this is the lesson. This is the biggest lesson. I just bought. You're gonna laugh your ass off. I just bought on eBay. Somebody was selling a whole bunch of old lenses. No idea what they were. He didn't list what
Okay.
they were. I just had a photo. How many was it? I think it's about 30 lenses, of vintage lenses for $100. So I bought them all, and I'm going through each lens and testing them. If it's like any good, I keep it. If it's not any good, I sell it. Try to make a profit.
Yep.
um,
Hmm.
and I'm choosing to use these old, either a super clean, perfect lens, for my reshoots or whatever comes up, or really old, ancient lenses, ancient glass that's got a
Yeah.
history to it. And this is now the tools of a painter. These are okay. You got to choose your brushes. You got to choose what you do, and I'm hoping it'll give me the film a texture, or anything else I shoot a texture of reality. And most filmmakers don't do that. You know,
Yeah.
um, they're just going to get. You have to shoot on this or this or this, well, actually, I shouldn't say most filmmakers. The good ones are going back to the old glass. And you look at Rise of Skywalker, man, it was old glass everywhere. The old, it was film stock and old glass everywhere you look. And even the VFX, they try to make it look like film stock. So it's there's a feeling, there's a revolution happening, and we don't even know it.
So with all the music that I've done for Mimi, that's all acoustic guitar and piano and vocals and stuff like that. So it's all, I stayed away from using the synthesizer stuff that this guy would get me.
Interesting.
I'm very happy. I had 19 tracks to choose from. This music producer, he said, right, I'll give you 19 tracks. Use whatever you want. I'm not bothered how you use it. So I went through this stuff again and again and again, And then when I shot a lot of certainly the first Mimi one, I was shooting it with the music in my head, going, right, that's the one shot that I want to get right. But no, it does sound very old school stuff. But
Will there be a soundtrack album?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely get the music so you could have a listen to it. But it's somebody I work with at my night job, or it was my day job at the time. And it's a guy called Carl Francis, and he was at work. He's like, yeah, I'm a musician. You go, yeah, are you? That's like me going, I'm a filmmaker. Yeah, are you though? That sort of thing. And he sent me the links to a couple of tracks, and I went home and I listened to them, and it blew my mind to the point I went in the day after and I went, this is going to sound really offensive, but I don't mean it that way, but how the hell does that voice come out of you? And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's amazing. Yeah, thanks. So humble, but he needs to not work where I work. He needs to be doing other stuff, which is part of the reason I wanted to use his music. It was the publicity side of things in me going, if I can do something that will showcase this guy's music, I'll be very, very happy. So
Yeah, I know, and that's
talented guy,
and that's a great thing. I've with the again for the Time War, I'm using Nettie John Cross, who did the music on Humanity's End, and I'm, he's crazy like me, but he's been recording music just for the sake of recording music with orchestras and stuff, and he says, so he just gave me a whole batch of music. So I'm cutting the movie to the music, kind of like what you're doing. And it's so refreshing. And yes, there's real violins, real this and that. And I just so love the fact that, I can touch something tangible and say, okay, so technology gives me the ability. He says, here's the music. Okay, here's a music track I did, an orchestra piece. And here's the stem. So here's each piece. So you can listen to each violin or each cello, whatever else you need, broken up. And I can then put it into the movie and cut out this and remove that and paint with the music. Nice. Oh, and it's so nice. And then I've got this new violinist. I'll say his name. You can Google this guy. So working in conjunction with this stuff. It's he hides. I know he's hiding because he's so good that everybody wants a piece of him. He goes under the name of William Stuart, or the violinist, and you Google it and you find this guy who's incredible. And I found this guy, and I'm just waiting for I can give him more stuff to do, but he plays from the heart, and his soul comes out of the music. And the same with Nettie John Cross, when he writes, his soul comes out, and I can throw that in the movie, and then there's life. And that's what you've got, Stuart. You've got somebody who's giving his soul to the music, and then you give that to the movie. It's going to turn out really good.